WHENWHYNWHYNWHENWHATEPPNAD. I always thought my life was perfectly balanced, work was manageable. I had a stable relationship and my family was my anchor. But as the days passed, I noticed things weren't as they seemed. My partner and I, once so deeply connected, were beginning to grow distant. We had stopped sharing the little moments and laughs we used to. Intimacy had faded, not just physically, but emotionally. I found myself turning to someone else for companionship, someone I'd known for years but never thought I'd feel that kind of attraction toward. It started innocently enough. A text here, a quick phone call there, until it wasn't. The emotional connection grew. And that's when everything shifted. The affair wasn't about the physical pleasure. It was about the emotional escape I had found. I was playing with my phone, sending messages to this person, sharing things I hadn't shared with anyone in years, when the door opened. My nephew, barely 15, stood frozen in the doorway. His eyes locked onto mine, a mixture of confusion and curiosity written all over his face. "What are you doing?" he asked quietly, before his gaze dropped to the phone in my hand. The air felt thick. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my stomach dropping. The last thing I wanted was for him to see me like this, caught in the mess of my own making. I quickly tried to cover up, but the look on his face was unmistakable. He knew. He knew something was off. He'd seen enough to understand that there was a side of me he hadn't known before, and it shattered my sense of control. He didn't say anything at first, just slowly walked away, his steps echoing in the silent house. What followed was the longest and most painful period of my life. My nephew avoided me. I could feel the gap growing between us. And worse yet, he didn't need to say a word for my partner to sense something had happened. The guilt and shame that clung to me were suffocating. I had to face what I had done not just to my partner, but to my family, to my nephew, who had witnessed a betrayal he wasn't ready to understand. The hardest part was not knowing how to explain it to him, or to myself. Eventually, I sat down with my nephew, trying to find the right words. "You don't have to tell anyone, but I need you to understand something," I began, my voice trembling. "I made a mistake. A really big one." His response was quiet, but he told me he didn't understand, that he felt betrayed in a way he couldn't explain. That hurt more than anything. Seeing the person who looked up to me, the one I'd always tried to protect, now looking at me with disappointment and confusion. What followed was a slow, painful healing process. I had to confront the reasons I turned to another person, the emotional distance that had grown in my relationship, and the toll it took on my integrity. I couldn't undo what I had done, but I could learn. I could rebuild trust. But it would never be the same. The emotional damage was far deeper than I had anticipated. Over time, my relationship with my partner faced an intense reckoning. We both had to look at what had happened, what we were willing to rebuild, and what we needed to let go of. There was no easy solution, no quick fix, but we slowly began to pick up the pieces. My nephew, too, began to understand more as I was honest with him, and we rebuilt our trust, even though the bond would never be what it once was. The affair may have ended, but the emotional consequences lingered far longer. The emotional complexity of what happened that moment, when everything seemed to fall apart, taught me a valuable lesson. The most important relationships in life need to be protected at all costs. Because once the emotional betrayal happens, it's not just the trust that's lost, but the sense of security, of knowing who you are in the eyes of those who love you. Infidelity is a complex and deeply emotional experience that can leave long-lasting scars on relationships. One of the most profound aspects of infidelity is the emotional betrayal that occurs when one partner, often unconsciously, seeks emotional solace outside the relationship. This type of betrayal doesn't just involve physical infidelity, it includes emotional attachment to someone else, which can feel just as damaging, if not more so. It strikes at the heart of trust, the foundational element in any relationship. When emotional betrayal occurs, it undermines the very sense of security that partners rely on to feel connected and supported. For the person who is betrayed, the sense of trust being broken can feel like an earthquake shaking the core of their entire emotional world. What makes emotional betrayal so difficult to understand and navigate is that it often involves an intricate web of feelings. The betrayed partner may feel not only the sting of being deceived, but also the sadness of knowing that the emotional intimacy they once shared has been fractured. Infidelity can carry a heavy psychological burden, as the betrayed individual may struggle with feelings of inadequacy, self-doubt, and confusion. How could they not have seen it coming? How could the person they loved choose someone else emotionally, if not physically? These are the questions that often plague the mind of the betrayed partner, and it's not uncommon for feelings of worthlessness to follow. But beyond the individual pain of being betrayed, emotional infidelity also creates a significant sense of alienation. Partners who are emotionally involved with someone outside the relationship can feel disconnected from the person they are supposed to be closest to. They may begin to withdraw, not just physically, but emotionally as well. The act of sharing intimate thoughts, feelings, and experiences with someone other than their significant other signifies a deepening distance in the primary relationship. The person who has been betrayed might sense this growing gap before they know the full extent of the infidelity. They may begin to feel a sense of disconnection, even if they can't quite pinpoint why. There's often a feeling of being shut out or ignored, creating a silent tension between the partners long before the discovery of the affair. The emotional betrayal can also be compounded by guilt on the part of the person committing the infidelity. They may not fully understand the consequences of their actions until after the fact. Emotional attachment to someone outside the relationship can seem like a form of escape, a way to find understanding and validation that might be missing from the primary relationship. The cheater may rationalize their actions by telling themselves that they are not physically cheating, but this rationalization fails to account for the deep emotional harm they are inflicting. As the emotional connection with the outside person deepens, the guilt grows, but so does the disconnection from the partner they are supposed to be emotionally invested in. This emotional distance becomes a breeding ground for feelings of isolation, making it even harder for both partners to reconnect when the truth is eventually revealed. The complexity of emotions involved in emotional betrayal is made even more challenging by the fact that many people in the relationship may not have the tools or language to express what they're feeling. Emotions like confusion, hurt, frustration, anger, and sorrow can cloud judgment, making it difficult to have rational conversations about the betrayal. The betrayed partner often experiences waves of conflicting emotions: anger at the betrayal, grief over the loss of trust, confusion about what to do next, and even self-blame. This emotional roller coaster can be debilitating, as it's hard to see a way forward when emotions are so overwhelming. The deep emotional impact of infidelity goes beyond just the people directly involved in the relationship. It often ripples through families, social circles, and communities. Trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to rebuild, and the emotional consequences can linger long after the affair has ended. The emotional scars of infidelity can shape how individuals approach relationships in the future, leaving a lasting impact on their ability to trust others. What was once a loving and trusting bond can be transformed into a constant struggle to rebuild and repair what has been lost. This emotional journey is long and filled with uncertainty, but it's also one of the most difficult challenges that anyone in an emotionally intimate relationship can face. The discovery of infidelity is often a pivotal and emotionally charged moment in a relationship. When the truth is revealed, it is not just the physical act of cheating that shocks, but the emotional weight of the betrayal that cuts deep. The moment of discovery itself is a whirlwind of emotions: confusion, disbelief, anger, and even a sense of personal failure. For the person who has been betrayed, this is a moment that shatters the illusion of safety and security within the relationship. It's as if the ground beneath their feet has crumbled away, and they are left to grapple with the emotional aftermath without any clear direction. The feelings of shock and surprise are compounded by a deep sense of betrayal, as the person they trusted has broken that bond in a way that can never be fully undone. What often makes the discovery of infidelity so jarring is the way in which it forces the betrayed person to confront the cracks that have appeared in the relationship. Before the truth comes to light, there may have been suspicions or small signs of emotional distance. Late-night phone calls, unexplained absences, but these are often brushed aside or rationalized. When infidelity is uncovered, it often feels like all those small moments that didn't quite add up suddenly make perfect sense. It's a deeply unsettling feeling to realize that the person you've been emotionally connected to has been hiding such a significant part of their life. The emotional devastation is compounded by the feeling of not truly knowing the person you've been sharing your life with. The person you thought you knew so well now feels like a stranger. The act of discovery is often accompanied by a rush of questions. Why did this happen? Why didn't they come to me with their concerns? Why did they seek solace or affection outside the relationship? These questions can become an obsessive loop in the mind of the betrayed person as they try to understand how the betrayal fits into the narrative of their relationship. Often, the answers to these questions are elusive. The person who committed the infidelity may have their own internal reasons for their actions, emotional neglect, unmet needs, or personal struggles that they may not be able to articulate immediately. The betrayed partner, however, is left with a chaotic mix of emotions, trying to make sense of something that feels incomprehensible. The shock of discovery can also lead to feelings of powerlessness, as the betrayed partner is forced to face a situation that feels entirely beyond their control. For many, the discovery of infidelity also exposes the hidden secrets of the relationship. It's not just about the affair itself, it's about the things that were kept hidden, the lies, the omissions, the emotional disconnections that were kept in the dark. This revelation often forces both parties to confront the underlying issues that may have contributed to the infidelity, such as communication breakdowns, unresolved emotional needs, or unmet expectations. The betrayal doesn't happen in a vacuum. It exists within the broader context of the relationship's dynamics. When these hidden aspects are brought into the light, it can feel overwhelming to process, as it reveals the deeper complexities that may have been ignored or overlooked for years. The discovery of infidelity can also have a profound effect on the sense of self-worth and identity. For the person who has been cheated on, there can be a deep internal struggle with feelings of inadequacy and self-blame. They may begin to question what they did wrong or why they weren't enough for their partner. This is compounded by the fact that infidelity often happens in secret, with the betrayer doing everything in their power to hide the truth. The sense of deception makes it all the more painful, as the betrayed person realizes that their partner actively chose to keep them in the dark. The shock of discovering this betrayal forces them to reevaluate the trust they once had, not just in their partner, but in themselves and their ability to make sound judgments about relationships. The emotional fallout from the discovery is not just immediate. It is something that reverberates through every interaction and decision in the aftermath. The betrayed person may experience an overwhelming sense of confusion as they try to figure out what comes next. Do they confront their partner immediately, or do they wait to gather more information? Should they try to salvage the relationship, or is the betrayal something they can never forgive? These questions become part of the emotional turmoil that follows the discovery, creating a sense of inner conflict that can last for months or even years. The discovery of infidelity doesn't just affect the present, it alters the trajectory of the relationship, creating a new and complicated emotional landscape to navigate. The way in which infidelity is discovered also has lasting implications for how both parties engage with the relationship moving forward. The discovery, especially if it's sudden or dramatic, often leads to immediate emotional reactions, outbursts of anger, hurt, or disbelief that can escalate quickly. The emotional tension can make it difficult to have rational conversations, and decisions made in the heat of the moment may not always be the ones that best serve the individuals involved. It's during this period of emotional chaos that the future of the relationship is decided, often with lasting consequences for both partners. The discovery of infidelity forces everyone involved to reckon with their emotions, their choices, and the road ahead, whether it leads to reconciliation, separation, or a slow, painful rebuilding of trust. The discovery of infidelity often forces individuals to confront not just the betrayal within the primary relationship, but also the broader, more complicated dynamics of family and close relationships. While infidelity is an intensely personal experience, it doesn't occur in a vacuum. It reverberates through the entire network of relationships that the person involved holds dear, including family members, friends, and even coworkers. These secondary relationships can become tangled in the emotional aftermath, creating a complex web of feelings, reactions, and consequences that further complicate the situation. When infidelity is uncovered, it's not just about the individuals directly involved. The impact extends to those who are closest to them, often creating rifts and emotional wounds that last long after the initial discovery.